Okay, hello, it's Paul Green here from the business community doing another one of our regular Spotlight on interviews. And today I'm joined by Kevin Robinson. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
And his little mini me in the background. Hi, Richard.
Hello.
So today we're going to sort of like delve into a little bit of Kevin's background, find out how he came to be where he is today. And later he's also going to share a few of some top tips given his vast knowledge and experience over the years. So Kevin, to start off with, do you just want to introduce yourself to the big wide world and let people know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Kevin Robinson, obviously. I'm the head honcho, the big cheese, if you like, at 13 Media and yourcopywriter.com. And basically, we have two brands: the 13 Media brand, which is general kind of media production products and video and so on, and then the new one, which is Your Copywriter, which is very exciting and basically does what it says on the tin. It's copy based and focused on helping businesses with their copywriting and messaging and anything that has words, basically.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit about what led to you eventually setting up 13 Media?
That's a long story. I'll try and cut it short. I was for many years I was in sort of senior sales and marketing roles in international products, the electronics industry. Same background as you, I think, that Paul, electronics and that kind of area. And I looked after Southern Europe and did a bit of traveling around. I did all that sort of stuff, and then a couple of things happened. The market changed very dramatically, which meant that marketing people like me were making less money, to be frank, and the industry itself was working on very low margins. It all got very kind of silly. And, I changed one morning and thought, I don't actually want to do this. So I basically drove into the office and resigned and went to retrain with the intention of, I've been a musician for many years as well. And I went with the intention of retraining in sound, becoming a sound engineer, which I did, and came out the other end as a video producer and a scriptwriter. I never actually passed the sound module, would you believe? But there you go. So, from there, I went into teaching, and I taught for well over a decade. In fact, I actually taught for longer than that. I taught full time for well over a decade, and then kind of part time up until Christmas this year. And my interests there were in how stories were told, were in narratologies, and how we understand language in terms of story and things like that. So that was my specialism, and in actual fact, I have a master's degree in screenwriting as well because of that, which came out of that. So in 2013, hence the name 13 Media, I left the university where I was teaching for redundancy reasons, in primarily department reshuffles, and I took the opportunity because I was a little bit disheartened with education. Started 13 Media with the intention of helping SMEs and small business have access to a kind of level of video production, audio production, and so on that they wouldn't normally have to at that level. So it was a lean, very lean fighting machine, if you like, to give people access to that. And that's what we did to start with. We had a video studio and a recording studio and things like that. But then as time developed, what happened was people started to get to know me and what my background was. And they started to say things like, you could have a word with my graphic designer, could you, about how this is presenting itself? And could we, you mind just having a quick look at the words on the website? And eventually by kind of 2017, because of various problems with the premises, we'd given up the studio, and I was full-time dealing with people's messaging and marketing messages and things like that, which is where we are now. And the new brand, Your Copywriter, is really the penultimate development in that range of services. Does that make sense?
More than you normally do. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So in terms of, the Your Copywriter I guess it's a sub brand or a sister brand, whatever you want to call it. So what was the reason? I know you touched on it a little bit. What was the reasoning behind that? Why did you pull that out as a separate entity and create a new brand for it?
Yeah, it's a good question. Anybody who owns a business will probably recognise the problem we had, which was we were building to a stage where I had too many products under one banner, and the 13 Media brand was kind of cluttered. You know, there was too much going on under it, and I spoke to various people, including my business coach and people like that, who were very helpful and said, "You've got too many brands. You've got too much going on. You know, people are confused. Nobody knows what you do anymore." So I then had a decision. We either look at kind of almost bundling products together and saying we do these packages, which we looked at for a while but didn't quite work. We couldn't get it there because you need a range of expertise you can fully have in-house. Or we split a brand off, and the requirement for copy was so high at that point that we felt that was the important thing. We decided that was the way to go. Everybody said, "Look, split one off." You know, and the more I talked about it to people, the more I thought about it, the more I realised that it was time to split it off. And I'll tell you where the actual decision came. You know, sometimes everything points to you should do something, and we were laughing at. I had a couple of strike rates with customers on them getting a great URL for their website, and I went, "Your copywriter won't be available anyway," and it was. So I bought it, and I thought, well, that's got to be the sign. That's got to be the last.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Got to be a sign.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was the real reason for it was that people then knew what that service was, and it was very clear what that service did and what those products did.
Okay, and as we can see in the background, there's a recent addition to the family, if you like. Yeah, that's it. Stop poking. Again, what was the decision that led you to decide to bring someone else into the business? What were the thoughts behind that?
Obviously, without going too much into the Richard's personal stuff, I need, like a lot of businesses, I rely these days a lot on freelancers, like a lot of marketing people do, and the problem I was having was it's a cliche part. Everybody talks about it, everybody says about this, you're working in your business, not on your business, and I desperately needed, from the point we launched Your Copywriter, to focus on Your Copywriter. Freelancers only go so far. What I wanted was somebody who, would pick up, and it's actually Richard's first day, by the way.
Yeah, I know. He's in the deep.
I said to him, "Sit back there quietly. It'll be fine." now he's on camera. I feel as if we should get to wave again now or something.
Maybe at the end.
He's trying to work back there. But what I wanted to do was bring on somebody who maybe was looking for the career, looking for the long haul, that was prepared to learn, that was prepared to kind of pick up on things that I'm good at and learn from them, and then look for the things that I'm not good at and compensate for those. So, Richard is coming on to develop his skills in areas like photography and graphic design, where I, are not my primary focus, obviously on the video side as a production assistant thing. So it's just somebody had to free some time. I had to free some time up somewhere. There's a limit to how many Saturdays and Sundays you can work just to get the business finished.
Something popped into my head. Yeah, we've talked about the future of sort of videography before, because people got their smartphones now, and they're quite high resolution, and if done correctly, they look okay on screen. I mean, what are your thoughts around where videography is going to going forward?
Without being, we get hung by other videographers for this. You realise that, right?
Well, that's why I asked you the question.
I know. You're a troublemaker, Paul Green. As my grandmother would have said, you could have caused trouble in empty house. You.
True story.
Yeah. I to be honest, I think at the bottom end of the video production side, and when I say bottom end, I don't mean in terms of quality. I mean in terms of cost and the cost effectiveness to businesses. Yeah, people can do their own now. They can do it reasonably well, and it's we live in a world. All of us live in a world now whereby you can learn the basics of most things very easily on YouTube within a few hours. You can do the basics of most things. Whether you then choose to do it or not is another matter, or whether it's worth you carrying on doing it, is another matter. So we're all, I think, technical and creative sales now. We're selling the bit we know, the creativity, I guess, if you like, and our expertise and our time. I don't think very much anymore we're selling specialist equipment or specialist knowledge, because it has reached the stage where 20 something years of video production, I'm not altogether sure 100% of the time whether it's been shot on a phone. So, and that's a massive change, and a very, very fast change as well. 10 years ago, we were turning up with 15,000, 20,000 pounds worth of video equipment and the 3-man crew. And these days, we're doing video with, probably a quarter of that in cost of equipment, maybe a little more. And I shoot now on my own quite frequently, because it's not necessary to do that anymore. So it's kind of reached the stage, I think, where possibly, photography went through this as well, whereby there is a layer above, which is the professional stuff, and there's a layer beneath where you can do an adequate job. Nobody takes a professional photographer with them on holiday, Nobody's being trailed around by a £600 a day by a professional photographer. They're good enough, and in fact, they're actually quite good at times. So there's this layer above where it's video. So we're keeping that layer. We still do that stuff, but honestly, bread and butter stuff, I think it's probably a market that is collapsing into a very low margin, possibly almost negative margin marketplace. So sensibly, as a business owner, I've got to say that can't be the sole focus of our business anymore. Emotionally, as a video producer, of course, I miss it, but we still do video as a main part of our business. But I think in the long run, yeah, people are doing it themselves. And in fact, we're looking at a string of one of the things Richard is doing is doing some free training to help people do a better job of their video production, and possibly some paid courses that we'll be running later in the year.
Okay, cool. So I asked people on these calls. Are they calls? I don't know. What their why is. What actually drives you. What gets you out of bed in the morning. To fight the good fight. What would you say your underpinning why is?
I think as kind of as cliched as it sounds, maybe that 20 years of working in education and helping people develop is actually part of the why I do this. The truth of the matter is, like a lot of business owners, I've got an experience in a range of areas, and I could probably go and get a reasonably well-paid job. In fact, probably want to pay more than running the mint, like a lot of people. Twice as hard for half as much in owning your own business. But we're currently the why. Okay, I'm currently doing a project with somebody who we're doing a rebuild on a website, and we're doing that. We're doing the copy, and we're working with other people. And when it's done, not only is it going to help them in their business, but their products will then help other people. And I think that's part of the why, is that you genuinely want to help people and get paid along the way for doing that. That's a pretty good job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Secondly, the why is I'm a storyteller. I tell stories. It's what I do. It's what I have done since I was a kid, and I like to know how they work. And that's a rare thing that I have, that I do, that everybody else thinks is boring, but I love it. When I was a kid, we used to watch television, and I was more interested in how it was shot.
Right.
and how the story was working than what actually happened. And sometimes, even now to this day, I have to watch it. I have to watch a show twice because I missed the story the first time because I was too busy looking at how they were using the film language or how the narrative was working in the script or whatever. You know. I'm also a pain in the ass to watch things with. Can I say ass on a live stream? I just did.
No, you can say that. Too late.
Do you lose have you now lost your live stream license because I said ass?
I've got no idea.
Really?
Yeah, we'll stop saying it then. So,
What's the ass?
So, who invited him? So, no, I tend to watch things differently, given things that you've said about how films are shot and what have you. So I notice more of that now rather than just sort of like sitting back and just watching it, without taking that in. So I'm much more observant now on, camera angles and how they did that and the continuous shots and all those sort of things. And it makes it more engaging. Okay, you have to rewind every now and again because you have missed the plot or something, but at least you're paying more attention to it. So we touched on it a little bit. There's other people out there that do what you do. So what would you say makes you different from your competitors?
On your copywriter in particular, no, across the board, I think in particular is it's that it always is very hard, isn't it, for you to be to say, well, you're good at something. It's that English thing, isn't it? Going, well, frankly, I'm not. They're all better than me. So as you know, I love to wind Stephen Church up with that. Every meeting I say he's better than me. It annoys him. But the approach, your copywriter's approach, and it's me and there's various other, associated kind of associate writers and things that we use in our specialism. My rule is story first, and we have, a kind of mantra, which is we use SEO words when it's the right thing to do. We use persuasion when it's the right thing to do, and we always tell a good story because that's always the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the difference is. I don't charge by the word. We say you'll get a blog that will be a minimum number of these words, for instance, and that's usually 500 that people want. So we say 500 with a minimum, you might get 1,000. Because if the story takes 1,000, the story takes 1,000. And that's more important than the wordage, So we are story based. We make things engage people because it's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're different. Does that make SEO? Yeah, of course it does. There's no way you can talk about somebody's product without hitting the right SEO words. Occasionally we go back and have a tweak to make sure it's a little bit more SEO based or whatever, so it works properly. But the point is, if you put copy up, if somebody comes to read it, it should be readable, shouldn't it? Shouldn't that be your main thing? So that's our focus. And when they say, I have had people criticize that and say, well, you don't have a specialist. Why would I hire a copywriter who isn't a lifestyle copywriter or a thing? And I go, we don't have specialism. We tell good stories. No matter what it's about, we tell a good story.
Okay. On the topic of blogs, whether we were on the topic or not, we are now. So with the advent of technology and people being able to record videos more easily, you've got platforms like TikTok. You've also got Clubhouse now, which is an audio-driven podcast rising in popularity, I believe. So is there still going to be a place for the good old-fashioned written down blog post?
Yes. In fact, there's more of a place for it. What you have to remember is that when you're putting a blog up on your website, you're doing more than putting words up. People get tied up with Google and about, they worry about the Google algorithms and all the technicalities of it and all that sort of stuff. And of course, keep up with that kind of thing as we go along. You need to in this job. But what you have to remember is that the blog is there to inform your customers, your current ones or your potential ones, or whoever you're targeting, and you have to combine that with a very simple statement. Google answers questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's its job. It answers a question, and so if you're writing a blog that answers a question for somebody, of course that is always going to have relevance. So of course it's never going to go away, because I don't know if you remember, I used to do I think I did it once when you used to do the old Denim Connect, where you talk about YouTube optimization is one of the products that we offer here, because people don't quite understand how YouTube works. And if you ask a room full of people and say, how many people think the content of the video causes the ranking on YouTube, you can see hands going, oh, did it once and connect, and 3/4 of the room go, like when they think it through, and they go, well, it can't, can it? And it doesn't. Google looks at words. YouTube looks at words. It looks at the words around the video. It doesn't look at the video itself. It looks at what you said it's about. So the blog it's your brand, it's your voice, it's your usefulness to people, it's what you do, it's how you talk to the world. It informs, it educates, it you know, hopefully, well, you buy it from us, it also entertains. It goes for stories.
Okay.
That's all you buy from us. No other copywriter does that.
No, absolutely not. But of course not. So we're still in pandemic mode at the moment. And that's been the biggest challenge for most small businesses over the last sort of 14, 15 months. Outside of that, in your business journey, Kevin, what would you say has been your biggest challenge to date?
We had, like most businesses, we had a period where we had a very hard time commercially, back in 2016-ish. Basically because I made a mistake with some premises very early on, and everybody says don't have premises if you can avoid it. But the mistake I made wasn't necessarily the premises; it was the way we went about it, and the people we had the premises from. And essentially, we ended up with a white elephant for about 8 months of our business life that we couldn't get rid of or use. So, you know, that was for health and safety reasons in a building that we were stuck in, and that just overwhelmed everything. And I said to myself, right now, I'm never doing that again. You know, the premises isn't the issue. I mean, you know, offices now, but to make the mistake of allowing one thing like that to make a big change, and that's the biggest challenge I've ever faced, because what you wanted to do was walk away from it. You know, it became 14 hours a day of battling and you know, wrangling with people who really didn't care about my business, and who cared about my business surviving. You know, and for a while it felt very much like the world was trying to stop me working. You know, trying to put me out of business. So I think that's been the biggest challenge we faced.
Yeah, I remember that time. It was very, very frustrating. You've kindly agreed to share some of your vast knowledge and wisdom. So I'm going to put you
an exaggeration.
Shh, no one will know. So I'm going to stick you in solo mode now and just hand over to you, Kevin, and see you in about 2 or 3 minutes' time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to see if I can grab my notes. All right, so something useful then. What I like to do, I kind of like to do this in the 45-second introduction, I think, as well, is give people something that they can think about to maybe take away and use later. So what I want to do is just talk about how words are kind of used and interpreted. And this is part of what kind of we do here. So here's the thing, right? When we're talking about words, and one of the problems with words is that they're actually not very good. They have multiple meanings. They have, you know, various interpretations. So it makes life very difficult for me, and in fact for everybody who runs a business, to make sure the message is going through. So let me give you an example of this. Where I come from in the south of Lancashire, in the northwest of England, there is a local word, cock, right, which is used as a term of endearment and a greeting. You know, all right, cock, how you doing? Oh, I was thinking, cock, you're all right. Completely different meaning for the rest of the country, though, isn't it? You know, and a good way to start a bar fight, actually, if you do it in the wrong place. But you know, that's a great example of a word that has a completely different meaning. In fact, a very unpleasant meaning compared to a very cosmopolitan areas. So you've got that problem in very much the same way when you're talking about your service or your brand. People have expectations based on what you do, who you are, and most importantly, the circumstances around the word. So that's what I think is a really useful exercise for everybody to do. So what we're talking about is the way that words affect your voice and how your business is seen. And it's very easy to make the mistake of thinking a word has a meaning and that's all it has. the circumstances it's used in are very different. And if you want proof of that, go and look at the words that are used on, I don't know, an exhaust fitting centre website, and the words that are used on the website of an opera company. They may both talk about pricing, but they'll do it in a very different way. Now, as an example of what I'm talking about, if you advertise a job for an education centre nourishment consultant, that's a genuine job title, by the way, education centre nourishment consultant here in Daventry, you probably wouldn't get many responses. If you advertise the same job as food server for school dinners, you probably get quite a few. So the choice of word makes a difference. But it isn't always the simple one. What's important is the context for your customers, for the people you want to reach out to. So using the job analogy, let's give you another example. A friend of mine, genuinely, his job is he fixes cobalt proton accelerators, right? I have no idea what that is. And when he told me, I said, why do you make that job title so complex? And he said, there's only 5 people who do my job. Anybody who needs me knows exactly what those words mean. So that's a classic, that's an absolutely brilliant example. It doesn't matter that I don't know what a proton accelerator is. I haven't got one, it doesn't need fixing. The people who do come straight to him. So when you're thinking about words, then you've got 2 things to think about. You've got syntax, which is the cat sat on the mat. It's the way the sentence is put together. And it doesn't matter whether it's written, spoken, recorded, it doesn't make any difference. That's always there. And then you've got the paradigm, and what that is, that's the choice of words. So the cat sat on the mat can be the feline reclined on the rug. It's more or less the same thing. And you change the words. And those little changes of words change your meaning. And it's the important thing to choose the right one, not for you, for the person you want to speak to. So, for example, you can say the car was blue, or you can say the sleek, well-designed saloon glistened in the sun like the Aegean Sea on a summer's afternoon, both of which are talking about a blue car. The second one, probably not what you want to use if you're describing the getaway car from a bank robbery to the police. You probably want to know it was a blue car. So circumstances are what I kind of guess the focus is that I want people to think about. So in practical terms, here's an unfortunate truth. Once you've written the word down and published it, once you've recorded it, you've sent it away, your control over it is zero, because it's interpreted by the person who reads it. The actual author of the meaning is the person who reads that word, or hears it, or whatever. So what I suggest everybody does is go back and look at your communications, look at your website, look at the footer on your emails, your leaflets, your promotional, your emails, your advertising, everything. And instead of going, that's what I meant, ask yourself, what does that really mean to the customer? My avatar, my target customer, is this right for them, not me? And if anything you come up with there, if you think it could be ambiguous or it could be confusing or it's not really important, this one, it's not how your brand personality sounds. It's not you speaking, not your brand speaking in the way that they want to hear it. Go back and do a rewrite. Try that exercise. See how you get on.
Okay, thank you very much. We did have one comment while you were rating there. I don't really know Gary Connor. So,
Gary, but I agree on 100% with what Gary is agreeing with me 100% on. Yes, absolutely. Context is everything. It's all about the context, more than the words. People get hung up on, oh, is this a way of describing it? Is it the right way? Well, if it doesn't, just describe it in the way your audience want to hear it.
Yeah, we did have another comment earlier on as well.
Yeah. Well, as Chris Lambert fully knows, 2 things from that. Number one, this is part of my particular personal branding. Is I now started wearing the tie, although I couldn't find the nice red one I normally wear this morning, so I'm wearing this rather garish affair. And secondly, he also knows I'm going to spit in his coffee next time he comes around.
Yes, that was Chris just asking if Kevin is only wearing a tie because he has staff now. So, final thing, Kevin, if you were to sort of like give one top tip for business, for any business owner out there, what would that top tip be?
I've got a really serious one, actually, a lesson I think I've learned over the last 8 years of being in business, and I embraced it fully, funnily enough, when we started the Your Copywriter brand. because I started Your Copywriter as a separate entity and it was away from the thing, it gave me a chance to think about how, kind of meta cognition of thinking about how I thought about the business. And because of that, I changed my whole thinking. And I think it's a lesson I would say to everybody. If you're in business, think of yourself as a shareholder. This is great. Michael McCallowitz talks about this in his books. Think of yourself as a shareholder in the business, not an employee, and focus there on saying, okay, well, my money is paid, my earnings, my justified reason for being in this business is, as the sole or partnership shareholder, whatever, is to have enough money in to pay myself. And it changes the way you look at your business. You start to become very ruthless about costs and very ruthless about what you spend and very ruthless about how you price and you go into the marketplace. And, I'm sure I can hear you quite now. You can hear somebody like Margot jumping up and down and high-fiving somebody in the background. But, it is, it's really important that you treat your business as a business, as a concern. And I know all this stuff people say, it's my baby and it's what I do and get emotional investment. Walking away from that emotional part sometimes and just looking at it purely as if you were a shareholder, asking whether that business is viable in its current form, what it's spending on. It's a really good exercise to do. And I think it's a good view to adopt permanently with a business.
Okay, very good advice. Thank you for that. So
was it just me rambling?
No, it's pretty much you rambling, but it was all good. So thanks for coming on today and for mentioning cock and arse in a live stream. Thank you for that. And welcome aboard, Richard. You now know what you've got to look forward to. So that's it. I'll end the broadcast there. Thanks a lot, Kev.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Have a good day.